Welcome to the Life Unscripted Podcast with Rosabel, the place where genuine conversations meet inspiring stories, personal growth, and a dash of humor. I'm Rosabel, your host, inviting you to embrace life's unpredictable journey. Celebrate your unique story and find joy in everyday moments. Get comfortable, stay curious, and let's explore together. Unscripted, unapologetic, and unstoppable. Hey, welcome back to the Life Unscripted Podcast. I am your host, Rosabel. And today we are in for a truly inspiring conversation. We are joined by a remarkable guest, Laura Clark. She's an accomplished hiker, author, and also an adventurer who has summited over 600 peaks above 13,000 feet, including being the first woman to solo summit all of the Colorado for, how do you say, the 40ers?
14ers, yeah. The 14ers,
yes.
yeah.
And the Centennials. So her journey, as detailed in her book, Wild Wanderer, summiting Colorado's 200 highest peaks, is one of personal growth, overcoming physical and mental challenges, and the transformative power of outdoors. Laura, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk with you.
I am so excited too. Laura, you grew up in Southern California, right? And later you moved to Colorado. How did you love your love for hiking and the outdoors develop? What inspired you to pursue such a challenging solo hike?
Okay, so this is a long story, but I grew up in Southern California, and Southern California was very urban, a very environment filled with cities, and my way of rebelling was going to camp and hiking. Like you see some people from the country that want to rebel, and so they want to move to the city. Me, I wanted to move to the country. I absolutely loved hiking, and that was my life. I went to camp when I was younger and loved the outdoors. I had kids very, very young and moved to Colorado in my early 20s and discovered hiking here. It was absolutely amazing because it was on a different level than it was in California. So growing up in California, we have a lot of mountains, but we didn't have a lot of 14ers. Northern California did, but Southern California didn't. And they had a bunch of high peaks, and I climbed them all, and I absolutely loved it. And then I moved to Colorado and learned what 14ers were, and I just became obsessed. That was a huge deal for me. I loved hiking. I loved getting out there and being in the middle of nowhere and the wildlife and the people and just the calm it gave me being out there in the middle of nowhere.
I can hear the excitement in your voice just by telling us that. I read that you have solo summited over 600 peaks above 13,000 feet. What was the first peak you summited, and what did you experience, that it taught you about yourself?
Okay, so this is actually a fun one. I had lived in Colorado for almost 10 years, and I was a hiker, but wasn't a mountaineer. I was also a Girl Scout leader, and I had a group of girls that were in high school that wanted to summit Pikes Peak, which is a 14er in Colorado. And being a Girl Scout leader that says absolutely, as long as it's legal and safe, we're going to do it. We went on this 3-day backpacking trip up Pikes Peak. And this was in August, and where we live in August, that's summer. It's very much summer. And on our second day, we got hit by a freak snowstorm that we were not expecting. Mountains tend to make their own weather. Wasn't in the forecast. We had 6 inches of snow. It was insane. And being Girl Scouts and an outdoor troop, we were prepared. We had plenty of supplies. We knew what we were doing. And during that trip, we knew what we were doing, but several people on the trail did not. They were wearing sandals, or they came in hypothermic, or they had altitude sickness. And each person that came in, we kind of treated and diagnosed and helped. And it was wonderful to see my high school age girls use their outdoor survival skills to help other people. It was a very inspiring journey. And I didn't realize it was so close to home and so easy to do. Now I say easy, it's a marathon. It is over 26 miles and is 7,500 feet of elevation gain. And it's not an easy hike, but I fell in love with it. So I started doing it with friends. And then I ran out of friends who were willing to do it because it is an extreme hike, but I ran out of friends who wanted to do it. And at one point I had done it dozens of times, and I was coming down from the mountain and I had somebody ask me, so what other 14ers have you done? And I looked at her and I'm like, well, what's a 14er? I had no idea that we had all these mountains that were above 14,000 feet in Colorado that I could climb. We have 58 of them, and we have almost 600 above 13,000 feet. And I was hooked. It just became an obsession for me. Like, oh, I don't have to do this one over and over again. It's great, but there's all these other ones out there that I can just enjoy.
That is so awesome. So your book, Wild Wanderer, It chronicles your solo journey to summit Colorado's 200 highest peaks, right? Can you share with us what led you to set that goal and how do you prepare for such a monumental undertaking?
Okay, so I didn't set that goal out in the beginning. In the beginning, I just wanted to hike and I loved doing it. And I found it very hard to find partners that were as energetic and enthusiastic and willing to get up at midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning to do these things. And I got through about 30 of the 58 solo just because I couldn't find a partner to go. Most of my friends were parents and had kids in school and had other things that they needed to do, other responsibilities, and just couldn't do it. And I was kind of scared to go further, but I ended up just doing things on my own and realizing I had the skills to do all the 14ers. With the 13ers, I realized I didn't have the skills. Those required ropes. Those required rock climbing. They were much more advanced than teeners. And so I went to a climbing gym every day and I learned how to use ropes on my own, how to climb on my own, all that kind of stuff. But to answer your question, the reason that I did it was I'm kind of type A and I like checklists, and it was a fun checklist and it was a different place every time. It wasn't the same place. And it was kind of fun to me just to, oh, well, what else can I do? What else can I do? What else can I do? Can I see if I can do this? And some of them were really challenging. There's a lot of peaks that I didn't summit the first time. I had to come back 2, 3, 4, 5 times in order to summit because I didn't have the skills at that point to do it. And I get there and I look at what's ahead of me. I'm like, I can't do that, but I can train and I can figure it out and eventually
Right.
come back and figure it out and do it.
Wow. I can only imagine summiting peaks, especially solo, comes with its own set of challenges, weather conditions, wildlife, and even personal doubts, you know? So, what would you say were some of the biggest obstacles you face on this journey? And how do you feel like you overcome them?
A lot of obstacles for me personally were mental, not necessarily physical. Your body can do a lot more than you think it can do if your mind is in the right place. I would get to a spot where I was just tired and I can see the summit ahead of me and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll just make it right there. I'll make it to the summit. And I get to where I think the summit is, and it's a false summit. And I see another summit a good half mile away. And I just, it's a crushing thing. Like, oh my gosh, everything I had, I thought I put into this to get to here. And then you realize you have so much more. You really do. You can keep going and you can keep making it up this mountain. It's just looking ahead of you and one foot in front of the other and telling yourself you can do it.
Wow. I can only imagine being the first woman to solo 14ers in the Centennial. So it's such a huge achievement. What was it like to be a trailblazer in this space? Like, how did you handle the weight of breaking a new ground?
Actually, I didn't think that's what I was doing when I was doing it. I didn't realize until I was almost done that a lot of other people were following my journey and that knew what I was doing. I was doing it for myself. I was doing it to inspire other girls, but I wasn't really promoting it. And I found out later that other people were following me and rooting for me and watching me, kind of thing. I also found out that mountaineering is a very male-dominated sport, and I got a lot of negative feedback from men, especially, who were like, there's no way you did that. There's no way you did that solo. I didn't do it solo. There's no way you could do it solo. And that was a huge thing to overcome. Like, it wasn't, I knew I did things. I had pictures and I had GPX files and I knew I had done it. The hardest part was convincing other people that I had done it, especially, I want to say this nicely, but men who couldn't do it or whose moms or wives wouldn't let them go solo. So they were trying to really make it look like there was no way I could have done it solo. I did not expect that kind of negativity. I got great feedback from the female community, but it is so small in mountaineering that it like overshadowed everything. And I went through a long period where I questioned myself. Like, did I really do this? They're all telling me there's no way I did it. Was I on the wrong summit? Did I do something wrong? A lot of self-reflection, and it took a long time for me to realize, no, you did that. Like, you absolutely did that. It's okay to say you did it. It doesn't matter that somebody else doesn't think you did it. You have proof that you did it. You absolutely did it. Quit worrying about all the negative comments. Don't read the comments. Right. Don't read the comments, kind of thing.
Did you ever feel like as if they were trying to discourage you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I had a lot of people that were trying to discourage me, but I had a lot of people that were trying to encourage me as well. And that's what we need to promote. People that are excited. Like, we should all be promoting success from other people. We shouldn't be tearing them down. We should be out here to
Absolutely.
help each other do better.
And like you mentioned before, climbing these peaks requires not only physical strength, but also a lot of mental resilience. Can you tell us about a time when you were like physically exhausted or mentally challenged during your hikes and how you kept pushing forward?
I've got several of those, but one story that sticks out with me from one of my beginning hikes, I was doing a 22-mile round trip hike up Snowmass Mountain, and it's called Snowmass because there's a bunch of snow at the top in the mass, and you're supposed to climb it when there's snow in the mass. You're not supposed to do it when it's melted out. There should be snow. So I started really early in the morning after several false starts because I had forgotten like socks or I had forgotten like, my snowshoes or something like that. And I'm going out on this trail, and about 5 miles in, there's this log jam. And this log jam spans the place of a football field, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a bunch of just logs floating on like 8 to 10 feet of water, just floating there. And I get across that, and another few miles in, I come to a really big lake, and I'm still snowshoeing and going around things. And I get up, I summit. It's a terrible day. There's winds like crazy. I'm only at the summit for like 2 minutes. I come back down and I'm skirting the lake, and I'm like, I'm the only one that's done this in the past few months. Other people are going to want to do this. I am going to try to make a trench with my snowshoes to make it easier for the next group of people that wants to come in, nice tracks to follow. So I'm making these tracks, and as I'm making them, the snow I'm on cleaves and falls, and I end up falling into a lake, a frozen pond, frozen lake kind of thing. And as I'm falling, it was all slow motion. It happened fast, but in my mind, it was slow. And I knew when I hit that ice, I was going to break through. I was going to be in frozen water. I was wearing snowshoes. I was going to have to get out of there. I was going to have to self-rescue to get out of there. And I did. I get to I'm waddling like a duck because I've got snowshoes on trying to get out of this lake. I get to the bank. I do snow angels in order to get all the excess water off of me. And at this point, I'm frozen. I'm cold. And I still have 8 miles left to get back to my truck. And the right thing to do is to start a fire. But I also knew that if I stopped for half an hour to start a fire, I wasn't going to start again. I wasn't going to have the mobility I had at that point. So I had to keep going. And as I'm going, I'm exhausted and I'm tired and mentally not really there. And I start having auditory hallucinations where I hear things talking to me. And like I hear a river, but I also hear like static from a radio that obviously was not there. And mentally, I had to tell myself, this isn't real. The car is only 8 miles ahead. It's only 7 miles ahead. It's only 5 miles ahead. You can get back to that. And when you get back there, you can get warm and you can, you know, sit in the truck of my car and warm up and feel good again. And that was a very mental trip for me, just staying coherent and not letting myself go crazy kind of thing, not letting myself sit on the side of the trail or wherever I was and succumb to being cold or being exhausted or anything like that. And it was just keep going. You got to get back. And salvation is right there. It is. It's really close. I mean,
Yes.
for a lot of people, 8 miles isn't close, but for me, 8 miles isn't that bad. I just have to do 8 more miles, 5 more miles, whatever that is.
Right. So, how did your solo hiking impacted your relationship with yourself, and what did you learn about your limits, like fears or your capabilities?
Solo hiking is a great time for me to reflect and go inward on what it is going through my life. It's a great time for me to, if I'm having difficulty with a relationship or with my kids or with work, just to go out there and say, okay, I'm having a hard time with this. This is what I want to say. All the negative stuff that you're thinking that you shouldn't actually say to somebody. Like, I don't like you because this isn't this, or this isn't working. I can go out there in my mind and get through all of that and work through it and then realize, okay, that's not the adult way to handle this situation. I want to be friends with this person. We have to work
Yes.
together, or this is my kid, or this is, somebody that I really love. I need to come in with a positive attitude to work through this. And solo hiking gives me that time. It gives me a ton of time just to think through stuff, be mad, be angry, cry, yell, scream. That happens a lot. And then come to a rational decision on how to behave like an appropriate adult and be a nice friend or a nice parent or a loving coworker or something like that. It's been very, very therapeutic for me. It gives me
Seems
the
like
time.
having a good time with yourself and just kind of finding yourself in a moment, right?
Yes, and even if I'm not going through something negative, like I hike almost every single day. And today I was out there and I didn't know what I would see. I just needed to get out. So I went out and I I saw a beautiful sunrise, an amazing sunrise that just made me stop in my track. I saw a bunch of geese that were flying and I got to watch them land on a lake. I saw coyotes running around me, and that just was peaceful. It was a wonderful thing. Even if I'm not going through something difficult, going out and hiking gives me peace, and just enjoying nature, enjoying what's out there.
Well, nature is beautiful, and it also has the capability of it brings healing to our mind, even to our body. I mean, that what nature does is what it does for us. I'm
Yes,
glad.
even just smelling the pine trees. Like, I'm out there and I needed to smell pine trees today. I didn't know I needed it, but I needed it. I needed that. It was wonderful.
Right. Well, so I understand also you have been involved in scouting for over 20 years, both as a Girl Scout and also as a volunteer leader. How was your scouting experience influence? How has it influenced your approach to outdoor adventures and the leadership part?
Right. Well, I've been a Girl Scout since 1986, so a really long time. I've been a leader since 2003. I loved, as a child, going to Girl Scout camp and being a part of Girl Scouts and everything it had to offer. That was what I wanted out of life. I loved it. I fell in love with the outdoors at Girl Scout camp. At this point, what it's really taught me is leave no trace, being nice to people, outdoor survival skills, helping other people that need help. I see a lot of people on the trails that leave their dog bags out, or like will eat an orange and just leave the peels everywhere, not understanding what that does to the environment. I'm one of those people that has a bag with me every time, and I'm picking up all of other people's trash because that's not okay.
Right.
It's just not. I love that, as being a Girl Scout leader, that I have passed on my love of the outdoors to so many other girls. I'm still friends with them online, and I see them posting pictures now. Many of my girls have graduated college, they're married, they have kids, and they're taking their kids on hikes, or they're putting their kids into scouting. And that to me is amazing. It's a wonderful organization. Being outdoors is a wonderful thing. And I love that I've been able to pass that on to generations, just hoping that they continue it as well and their kids like it.
That sounds great. You have led multiple troops in outdoor activities, survival skills. How do you incorporate those lessons, that you've learned in hiking and your personal experiences into your role as a mentor, mentoring those young scouts?
It depends on the age group. It really does. Like, the older girls are harder to impress. The younger girls are easy. They're easy. But I like to talk about the things I've done and then show them a lot of hands-on things. I love to teach girls of any age how to start a fire and do it on their own. And they can start a fire with like flint and steel. And within an hour, they've completely got it down. I'm like, okay, you're 10 years old. How many of your parents can actually do this? How many of them could start a fire if they had to start a fire with flint and steel? You rock. You are awesome. Okay, let's go on to the next thing. Okay, like we're going to identify plants. We're going to find out what you can and cannot eat. Or we're going to learn how to build a shelter in less than 30 minutes, and you're going to be safe if you're in a storm. Or somebody broke their leg. How do we fix this? And seeing the light in their eyes when they figure it out and knowing they have the skills. And then from other events, seeing them actually use it is amazing. Watching them use the skills they've learned, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I just saved somebody's life because of what we learned in Girl Scouting, or what we learned in scouting. I have 5 kids, so I had, my girls were in Girl Scouts, my boys were in Boy Scouts. We've done all of it, but on all the levels, it's wonderful to see a kid save somebody else, save an adult, and that's
Wow.
empowering to them. They're
Yes.
like, oh, I love this. Like, I knew what I needed to do and I saved you, kind of thing.
Yeah. To know that you have the courage to do those things, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That you have what it takes, right?
yeah, and just giving them the skills and then having a real life application where they get to use it and go, oh my gosh, what we learned actually means something. It does work in the field. It does work.
Absolutely. And for those who are inspired by your story and want to kind of take their own hiking or adventure challenges, what advice would you give those beginners who might feel like, let's say, intimidated by the idea of solo hiking or summiting difficult peaks?
All right. My first advice is to take a first aid class. Know how to self-rescue. After you take a first aid class, you can take a wilderness first aid class. It'll give you a ton of skills to use just what's in your backpack if you ever have an issue. It'll teach you what to do to self-rescue. Obviously, you tell people where you're going, even if you're going solo, so that somebody knows when you don't come back on time to look for you. Another good piece of advice I like to give people that are kind of scared to go out is to take a trekking pole. You don't necessarily need a trekking pole just for stability. It is like a 4 to 5 foot weapon. It is a baseball bat. It can help between 2 and 4-legged animals if you feel scared. You can use it as a signal for a flag. There's a ton of things that you can do with it. And if you're scared to go solo, the first couple times, maybe go on a trail you already know, a really popular trail where there's other people. Get yourself used to going out there, and then eventually try it at a different time of day or, on your own.
You have accomplished so much in your outdoor adventures. What's next for you? I mean, are there any new peaks, challenges, anything that it's on sight for you?
My bucket list is huge. I've actually got a whole binder that's like that full of things that I want to do. But next month I'm headed to South America, and we'll see what I can climb down there. I'm looking for weather windows, so it's going to be a pretty open month, and I'll just see whatever looks good. When you're a mountaineer, you got to go with the weather window. So
That is.
that's what I'm looking at.
So, what else do you do for fun?
For fun. Oh my goodness. Oh, I got a ton of stuff that I do for fun. So I homestead. So that pretty much means if I don't raise it or grow it or shoot it, I don't eat it. So that takes a lot of my time, either raising animals or hunting or growing a garden and canning food and all that kind of stuff. But mainly, like I said, I hike like 150 days a year. I really do. That is my main passion. If I'm not mountaineering, I'm hiking. Unless the weather's really bad and there's terrible avalanche danger, I'm out there hiking, and I do work full time too. So like
Wow,
I've got that going on. But yeah.
that's awesome. So, tell me a little bit about your book.
Okay, so my book, and I've actually kind of got a copy right here. It's my journey from going from a single mom that went through a really bad divorce to becoming a mountaineer, and doing that all within the span of just a couple of years, just finding myself in the mountains and realizing this was something I could do and thriving off of it. There's a ton of stories in there about mistakes I made, things that I did wrong that I hope other people can look at and go, oh, I've read this story. I'm not going to get into that situation because that sounded terrible. And then some fun stories, wild animal encounters, some ghost stories in there, cool things that happened to me on the trail. It's a fun book. Everybody that has read it, all my feedback is just, oh, this is a great book. It's great for anybody that loves hiking, men, women, kids, if you want to get out there. Some really fun stories.
Wow, I bet your kids are so proud of you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm an
Yeah,
empty nester now. They're all older, so I don't get to really, I don't know. They're still in that stage of I'm mom still. Like I'm a
right.
mom.
Well,
So,
you'll
but
always
yeah.
be their mom, but for sure. I mean, it's incredible, to be able to have I know exactly where you're coming from. In a way, I'm a mom too. I have a full-time job, and I also have a passion, for communication, and now allowing people like you, wonderful people, to kind of share the story, see what makes you happy. And you never know who could be listening at the other side of this, and then they might be so inspired, story.
And I just have to say, you're always a mom. I'm very passionate about being a mom. I was the best mom I could be to my kids that I felt I could be. I was room mom. I was sports mom. I was, band mom. I was did all that kind of stuff. And I realized as my kids went through high school that I needed my own passion because they were going to go to college and they were going to move away. And I couldn't base my life off of their hobbies and interests. I did a lot of that, and I never really swayed from that, but I also had to have my own life because otherwise when they leave, you're going to just be left with a hole that you need to fill. So whatever that
Absolutely.
is, whatever your
So
passion is, you got to
that
find it.
is part of actually, as women, taking care of ourselves, our emotional health. And also, I know this for sure. In this day and age of so much things going on emotionally, depression or that, I know what going outdoors and walking can do for you, for your own mental health. Anything else you want to share with our audience? Anything that I have not asked you?
I'm just going to say if you want to go solo somewhere, go out and go hiking, but like your family and friends don't want you to, don't live your life through somebody else's fears. If you feel that you can do it and you can be safe doing it, go do it. It will absolutely change your life.
That's awesome. Any particular place that you will say, hey, this will be a place that I recommend for beginners?
Well, I live in Colorado, so I can only give those kind of things. Like we have great things here, Garden of the Gods. We have great park systems that you can go to all over the United States. Any of our national parks or state parks are absolutely wonderful. But even like just walking around the block, just walking around your neighborhood or wherever you can get outside, you'd be surprised how just that will give you clarity or seeing something new or just the fresh air is amazing. You don't have to go far. All you need is tennis shoes, honestly. Get
Absolutely.
out there and enjoy the
And
outside.
I'm like you. I always recommend it, even if you're just going for a walk, walking stick.
Yes. Yeah.
Because even if you're in your neighborhood, you never know when you can encounter a dog or even a snake here in Texas. So,
Yes. Yeah. And I really hate this, but I tell everybody to leash their dogs. It's for their own dog safety. Here we have, porcupines, their dogs get a whole bunch of quills in the nose or moose and stuff like that. But we have people on the trails who are allergic to dogs or who are
right.
scared of dogs. And just please leash your dog. And I always carry a trekking pole. I've never had to use it against a dog. And every dog I've come across has been great. But it's there in case you do feel the
Absolutely.
need to use it. I wouldn't recommend using it unless you don't feel safe. And then at that
Right.
point, that's what it's there for.
Right. So like I say, here in Texas, also snakes, and it doesn't have to be anything that you encounter on the road. So
Mm-hmm.
it's always helpful. Laura, I want to thank you so much for sharing this incredible journey with us. Your story really, it feels like it's a testament of the power of self-reliance, resiliency. I just love it. And like I was saying earlier, the transformative effects that nature has on us. I know our listeners are walking away with a renewed sense of determination, adventure, and I want to say that for those of you that are interested in learning more about Laura's journey, you can find her book, Wild Wonder, correct?
Yes,
Submitted Colorado 200 highest peaks, right? And it's available for purchase. And I believe you can find more about her work and her work. And you actually have a blog, correct?
I do. It's wildwanderertripreports.com. It's mainly trip reports. I climb a lot of mountains that are very seldom climbed, so I give step-by-step instructions and pictures for anybody else that wants to do it to keep them safe or at least let them know what they're getting into before attempting a hike.
Wow. And then you can also find Laura on Instagram at Laura underscore Clark. So I'll be sure to put these links in the description and the notes. Well, Laura, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And remember, no dream is too high and no challenge is too great. So get out there, explore, and keep pushing forward. So until next time, keep your life unscripted. Thank you, Laura.
Awesome. Thank you so much.